be the screen similar to probably what you see when you first log in, where you see all your courses on the right. So I'm going to click on our course, Lifespan Psychology, open up that course. The first spot you're going to want to go to is under course information and content. Once you're under course information and content, on the left you see all the modules, and you'll see a new module called Reflection Paper Development and Submission. This week we're focusing on this task alone, and I want to talk about each of the resources that you will see here. The first resource you're watching now. That's the watch and overview video, and you're doing that as we speak, so I think we're good there. The second option says Review Reflection Paper Requirements and Grading Rubric. In the syllabus, I have listed kind of the overview of the paper. Tells you this writing assignment is designed to demonstrate your critical thinking skills. This is a departmental-wide assignment. It's essentially a measure to make sure you can write about psychology literature. You can write close to APA style, that you can critically think about the science you're reading and apply it to your own experience. So that's the purpose of this paper. What you're going to do is you're going to write about 3 different stages of your life. You're going to write either personal reflections about your experience or reflections that you have of someone in your life that's close to you. So for example, some of you may be parents. You may be able to write about early childhood, which is one of the stages here, 2 to 11. But so for each of these stages, childhood 2 to 11, adolescence 12 to 19, and adulthood 20 to 35, you're going to write about a reflection or experience that you've had or an experience that you have observed, and you're going to talk in each one of these 3 stages about the 3 domains of development that we've talked about in class many, many times already. Physical, how you biologically mature and change and grow. Cognitive, how you change in the way you think, use language. How you learn, how you problem solve. The chapters are organized in this way. Physical, cognitive, psychosocial. And then psychosocial/emotional, how do you change in terms of the way you develop relationships? You regulate your emotional development, and you develop a sense of self. So you're going to think about 3 experiences from these age groups, these segments of the life, and you're going to talk about them. And I want to look at this criteria here to get a really high score in each one of these areas. Look to the text on the right-hand side. Lifespan elements would be physical, cognitive, psychosocial, right, are thoroughly described and applied to personal experience. So you're going to talk about your experience, but this is the important part. Once you talk about it, you're going to ground it in the theory and the science that you've read about in your textbook. That's where the analysis and comparison and synthesis all comes into play. So maybe asking yourself the question, how do I do that, Dr. Rollinson? I don't understand. Let's say that you read about Piaget and his process of adaptation, which is cognitive development, right? And you start reading about how children go through this process of adaptation, and they go through these sub-processes of assimilation and accommodation. And you think back to an experience you had in developing language, right, which is cognitive development. And you think, well, children form categories. Sometimes they have to assimilate new information. So they see things in the world, they have to assimilate into existing categories, or they need to accommodate, create new categories of language representation. In other words, you're describing more than just the personal reflection. You're grounding that reflection in the theoretical positions, in the science presented in your chapters. That's your goal. So you're going to do that in 3 separate areas: childhood, adolescence, and young adulthood. You're going to make sure that in each of these 3 areas you talk about physical, cognitive, and psychosocial development, and that you ground those experiences in the theory. So that's look over the rubric, make sure your paper follows the rubric. That's how I'm going to give you your grade. I'm going to read your paper. I'm going to look to these columns and think about, did you do these things? And then I'm going to assess you based on that. So that's the first resource I want to point out is the review reflection paper. The second is maybe ask yourself the question, what does an APA paper look like? I have linked for you a title page, introduction. Notice their section headings. Notice their in-text citations. Anytime you use the textbook, anytime you go outside the textbook and maybe you read an article online and you want to support your argument in the paper, or you're not your own reflection, but you're talking about theory and you need to cite that, it's not common knowledge, make sure you pay attention to the way citations are presented in this paper. Also pay attention at the end of the paper to the reference list. There are books referenced here. For example, Hendricks, Slim to None, McGraw-Hill, that's a textbook. Notice there are journals cited here. Kaplan, Canadian Journal of Psychiatry, volume 47, pages 235 through 242. There's several different citations here, books, journals, websites. Make sure you're formatting your reference list accordingly. I would assume all of you would cite the textbook. So make sure you definitely pay attention to that. Lastly, well, not lastly, but another resource I have here is a template. Click on this. You can download it. Let me do that instead. Let me back up here. You can click this drop-down arrow to the right of where it says download the paper template. You can actually download this template to your machine, your computer, open it up. It's an RTF format, so it should open in pretty much any word processor. I've already built for you a title page. I have your section headings, and I have, for example, kind of descriptions of what you should be talking about here. So use this template. I even have your textbook cited here. I need to update that actually to the current textbook, but I'll have your textbook cited here, so make sure you look over this. But you can use this template to kind of help you craft your paper. I think it'll be beneficial to you as well. So lastly, what are you going to do when you get the paper all finished? Well, you're going to submit it to the Dropbox. And I have a link here for you in the same module. So you'll click Submit Your Reflective Essay Paper. It'll take you to the Dropbox. And essentially, you're going to add your paper. So here under Submit Your paper, you're going to come down to where it says, sorry, I'm going to Dropbox real quick. Dropbox Assessments, Dropbox, and submit your reflection essay paper. When you click there, you're going to be able to submit the paper. And I need to update the dates here so that they're updated for you. But when you submit your paper, you can give me a note. And when you submit the paper, it's going to give you an email saying that, hey, your paper was submitted, everything's good. Make sure that you get that email from eLearn. It will automatically generate it saying that your paper was uploaded successfully. Make sure before the due date this Sunday night that you have that confirmation. Okay. Well, good luck on your paper. I hope this video serves you well. I hope it helps you construct your paper. I look forward to reading it. Have a nice evening. Take care.